go back to now. Let's see. Let's turn this one off.
And choose selected APs. It's the bottom choice in 4.
Yeah.
And then just choose this to view just the ones you manually click. So select that one and then go up. And when you guys are looking at the planning tool, you want to read it like a sentence across here. So I'm looking at everything we built there for selected APs or for all access points or signal strength for, whichever. That makes it easier for you to understand what you're visualizing. If you read that where Kevin just chose the selected access points, if you read that whole section as one sentence, it helps you to explain to your customer what it is, and it's right there in front of you. Why not use it?
Okay, and in this case, you can see here's the access point that's actually on the 3rd floor, and we're not seeing the visualization of that access point. And if we come over here to this area right here and let it hover for a minute, you'll see that we're sitting at about neg 69. Neg 69 is out of the signal strength of that. If we wanted to look at it from a neg 70 perspective, go back to neg 67, you can see that in this area here, we're not going to get coverage from the 1st floor based on the modeling that we're doing. If we come down to the 1st floor, you can now see that there is coverage across from the 2nd floor AP because we have not placed one on the 1st floor.
This is especially useful in buildings that have an atrium, because you're not just dealing with going through the floor itself. Sometimes it will go out into the open space of the atrium and will bleed down, and you can see it as it diffracts and wraps around the higher floor going into the lower floor, or as it propagates and wraps around going into the upper floor from the lower floor. So you can visualize that as well.
And in this case, what we're looking at is we're not just looking at the signal strength from the access point, we're looking at the view mode based on the client. So if we just take the view mode of the client off, you can see that the coverage area from just a straight power setting is much larger, but let's look at it from what the client itself. And when you think about that as a client, if we were doing it just as the AP and a client was way out here and a client was way over here on that same access point, they're going to be hidden from each other. And you're going to create, it's basically going to create a hidden node scenario. So it's important to know the visualization of what you're looking at from a design perspective.
Also, from the design perspective, we're just looking at the coverage of the access point. It would be skewed, and when we're looking at saying, this is great, I've got the coverage I want all the way out here, but if my client can't see that signal strength because of its own receiver sensitivity, it's creating a bad design. So you always have to design around the client. What is it capable of doing? What are its demands? And what kind of environment is it working in? And when you change that visualization to looking at what the client sees, that's what is real. That's what matters. The other stuff, if the client can't see it and use it, it doesn't matter that it's there. It's not going to meet the needs of that device or the user.
And then if you take a look at this, you'll notice that it's being measured as a mobile device that's on. So viewed as measured or viewed as mobile device. So this is viewing it as what a mobile device would see, not necessarily a laptop or some other stronger power device, but a mobile device. Now let's take a look at this consideration. You'll notice that the AP is right here. Would we actually do a design where we're placing an AP that's right outside of a stairwell? Maybe, maybe not. So, I mean, those are some things to also consider. And we talked about that in the previous video.
Because in most places, it's not legal to put an AP in the stairwell, nor is it legal to put one in an elevator shaft. But there's no rule about bleeding the RF energy into those places. So if you're designing for a customer like this with mobile devices, let's say they're phones and they need to go up and down the stairs and they need to work, then you need to look at putting them near those objects to let more of that signal strength in those areas so they actually have coverage so the phones will work. So this will help you visualize areas where you need to have that coverage bleed through, and also show you where it's not getting through.
Let's do this as an interesting little take on this overall. Let's put this on a wall and let's modify it to where it is not on the ceiling, but it's on the floor. So the RF is going this way out as opposed to this way down. And you'll notice most of the RF is going that way. So the AP is mounted on this wall pointing that way. Let's go ahead and see what our multi-floor considerations look like. And you can see that the coverage is very good in this area, and it doesn't obviously bleed behind it. Let's go back up to the third floor and take a look at that. And you can see that you're getting, if you put that on the wall, you're getting good coverage, semi-good coverage on the third floor as well as the first floor. So there are considerations where you may want to put an access point on the wall for a different orientation for creating more of a vertical coverage than a horizontal coverage.
And those will happen a lot in logistics and warehousing, where maybe you have some on the ceiling and pointing down, and you want some on the walls to shoot straight down an aisle, for example. And that's going to give you the coverage where you need it to go. And then you're using the shelves to your advantage if you need to add more access points, and it will help you with your channel reuse plan. But you can shoot them in opposite directions, have one on one end of an aisle shooting in one direction, and then have one the next aisle over shooting back in the opposite direction, instead of having them all across the ceiling where they can all hear each other. That's going to help you get more access points in for a dense deployment if it's required. Also, another thing you can change in this is the mounting height of the access point. The default mounting height is just over 8 feet. So if I need to change that mounting height, I can change it from, oh, it's right at 8 feet. If I want to change it, I can change the mounting height in case I am in an area like a warehouse. That's going to be probably 40 or 45 feet in the air. So I'll change that. And I'm going to show what it really is mounted up high versus mounted down at about 8 feet. The standard visualization for the client is normally 3 feet. So if you're walking around with a barcode scanner or a laptop in your hand or a tablet or a phone, that's about right. It's about 3 feet. But the ceiling height is where you have to worry about mounting the APs if they're on the ceiling. So maybe you need to change that. If it's a standard office, probably not. But in auditoriums or warehouses, that's going to be much higher. And people forget to do that. You'll have great coverage for someone who's on the forklift as high as it will go, but to the person standing on the ground beneath them, they have little or no coverage. Certainly nothing usable.